So today I want to show you how to build a $5,000 a month mobile app using AI and primarily using the AI app building tool Rork. Building native mobile apps is still something that is really difficult even with AI, and I want to show you how you can connect just a few tools to actually get a working app with a paywall and build it so that you can publish it directly to the Android or iOS App Store. If you don't know me, my name is Chris and I've been designing apps and advising startups for the last 15 years, and I believe the next wave of incredible businesses is going to be built using these AI tools. And with that said, let's get straight into Rork and build our $5,000 a month mobile app.
Build great products. Build great products.
Okay, so let's start building our iOS and Android app, and we're going to be primarily using Rork for this, although we're not just going to be using Rork as the tool to actually build this and publish it on the App Store. And I think that's one of the common misconceptions that people have with these AI app builders, is they think that they can kind of do everything with it and that you can build it and launch it and scale it and get customers and do payments and all of this other stuff, when actually you do need to integrate some other tools into your app to actually make it work. And sometimes you have to do that outside of the platform that you're actually using to build it. And so we're going to use a few other tools here alongside Rork to actually build in payments, get it onto the App Store and get it into a format where we can actually publish it. But first, I kind of want to just go through a few things here. So how does this actually make 5K a month? I think one of the things that's really common on YouTube is using these titles to say, oh, this app can make 10,000 a month, this app makes this amount of money, or like basically using previous successes of other apps just as kind of like clickbaity titles. But I want to just do like some basic maths as like a breakdown here to show you how you could actually build an app and then get it to 5K a month, basically using like an audience, like on a platform like YouTube or X or wherever you kind of have a social following. Now it does kind of require that you have a little bit of a social following and a bit of traction there first, but even if you're just thinking about short form video, you can kind of get millions of views on short form video even without having any other content or any followers, and just get a ton of attention. So if you think about, like, if I created a new account on TikTok and I posted a couple videos and they got 50,000 views total. So let's say they got 50k views. Let's say the conversion rate of those 50k views is just 1%, which is fairly low. If the conversion rate is 1%, that's 500 people. And if we charge $10, that's $5,000. And if it's $10 a month, then that's $5,000 a month. So that's like your really rough kind of breakdown of this. Obviously there's loads of other things in here like churn, some of those people will leave, but if you keep creating content and if you kept getting more and more views, you could just keep growing that over time basically. So that's the basic maths that we're doing here. For that app build process, we're basically going to go through these 4 steps, which is going to be the idea. So my idea for this is Cal AI has obviously had a lot of success. I want to do AI Cal, which is like a calendar that you can chat to with an AI agent. And that means that I could like add events into my calendar and I could just ask my calendar, when's my dad's birthday? And it will tell me, instead of me having to like search through or do a search or like scroll through the calendar, I can just ask my calendar questions, and that will make life super easy for me. Now I'm sure there's like a ton of apps out there that do this, but really it's just a way of showing you that you're like identifying a pain point and then you create an app to solve that pain point with AI. And I thought the Cal AI to AI Cal was a little bit of a fun naming twist there, so I've just gone with that. We're then going to build the front end in Rork and some of the functionality as well. So Rork will be the place where we start with this idea. We'll put in a prompt to help us create it. We're then going to add in payments in Cursor using Superwall. Now Superwall is like a payment provider, like a third-party payment provider for native apps that you can build into your code, and you can manage all of your payments and everything through that platform. You can also use something like Revenue Cat here, would work really well as well, but you basically just sign up for an account and then you would integrate that into your app in Cursor. And then we're going to use a tool called Expo to publish it to the App Store. So those are really the 4 steps, and this is our tech stack. So we've got Rork, we've got Cursor, and we've got Superwall, and we've got Expo. And the first prompt that I'm going to put in here, because I also want to cover a bit about what makes a good first prompt when you're using these AI app building tools. So the first prompt I think the key to first prompts for me, because you want to get started pretty quickly, you don't want to spend time over analyzing things, and you want to kind of like get the ball rolling a little bit. And often it isn't until you start building something that you realize what you actually want, and you have to kind of like start from the beginning and build a new idea that's actually better. And so quick prototyping and writing quick, like simple but effective prompts is really key for me to like get things out there quickly and test if it's going to work. So I would always say like, know what you want, but keep it simple. So the great things to include in a first prompt, if you're building with something like Rork or Lovable or any of these other tools, is just to go one step beyond what you would put in. So instead of saying like a to-do list app, we want to communicate these 5 things. So what is the purpose of the app? So this is a calendar to help people find events easier that they might have forgotten about. With AI, where's the key functionality? It's going to have a calendar. We're going to be able to add events to it, and then the user can chat with AI to find events in their calendar. What is the user journey? So they're going to go through a few steps here. So the user would have a calendar view of the month. They would then have a button to chat with AI. They click the button to chat with AI, and then they can ask it things like when is my dad's birthday? And they can also add events to the calendar with like a simple plus button. Are there any other features that we want to include here? Do we want to do like user profile, subscription management, that sort of stuff? And then what is the design style? So I'm going to go for like a really minimal kind of design here. If you see my other videos, you know, like I always go into more of the minimal style with my kind of app designs, but I'm going to bring in like a few pops of color to actually make it a little bit interesting here as well, and make it a little bit more interesting for you to look at as we're going through building this. So that's the overview of everything we're doing. I've talked enough about that, so let's just put the prompt straight into Rork and see what we can get building here. So if you go back to Rork, you can see I've already done like a previous version of this just to test it. So let's put the prompt in, and I won't take you through the prompt too much because it's basically all of those 5 pieces that I've said. And this is all going to be done with GPT-5. Remember, this is about building with GPT-5. So we're going to try using GPT-5 in Rork, and we're going to use GPT-5 in Cursor as well. So I'm just going to add this on here as like, this is our large language model that we're using to write the code, basically. And we're going to use GPT-5 in every platform that we're using here, just to see like how good it is at actually writing this code. So let's send this off to build. Quick break in the episode to talk about my community for people who are building apps with AI and want to actually launch their app and get real customers. It's called the AI App Builders Academy. So if you're building an AI app with Bolt or Lovable or Cursor or any of these AI tools, and you actually want to make a profit and launch your app, then this is the community for you. Inside, you'll get access to a community of other builders, as well as my 30-day app course, helping you go from idea to app to a profitable launch in just 30 days. You'll also get access to weekly calls with live workshops and training, as well as all of my startup frameworks and resources, and 24/7 support from the community to help you answer any questions or problems you're having with building and launching your AI app. So if you're building an app with AI and you actually want to make a profit and launch your app, then head over to school.com/AI apps to find out more. I'll see you there. And this is then going to start building for us. Now, I think at the moment, Rork is defaulting to Sonnet 4, which is the standard kind of coding model from Anthropic. But we're going to switch to GPT-5 here to see how this does. And you can see here, like the same with any of these other AI app building tools, you've got your chat in the left, and it's going through like, here is basically like summarizing the app that we want here, with some like a little bit more detail about what we're creating. And it's creating these code files here, which you can see over in the left hand side here. So you've got your app code being written here. You've also got a terminal down the bottom as well, which is quite useful to be able to see the kind of logs of what is happening, what is going on whilst your app is being built, and to pick up like any errors which are happening. This error seems to happen like a lot in Rork for some reason, so you can kind of ignore that, I think. And then on the right hand side here, you've got your preview, and you can basically test this on your phone. So if I scan that QR code, I can actually test the app on my device to see how that works. And you've got a preview here for Apple, for Android and for web as well. So you can see all of those different options. You can also clone this into a new chat, so you can clone the project and start working on it basically how you would if you were writing code in a project and you wanted to create like a separate branch, or like fork the main code base to like work in it with basically the same code base but in like a separate space, so you weren't worried about like affecting your main app's code. You can also download the code here as well, and you can connect to GitHub, so you can sync your code back and forth with GitHub and then edit the code in another platform and then push it back to GitHub, and that will update in your Rork project here as well because it is connected to that repository in GitHub. If you don't know what all of that means, basically GitHub is like having a folder where all of your code lives, and it's like the source of truth for the code for your app, and it's a place where you can kind of like store that code without having it affected by like any of these other tools. You've also got the option to add in a backend here, which will have like a database, API keys, user interactions, and that sort of stuff. That is built into Rork. You might need to do some changes to that when you take it out of Rork and put it into Cursor, or to make that kind of compatible with the App Store. But this should have everything we need in here. And you can also publish directly from here, but this is really just publishing to a preview URL. So you can't publish it to a custom domain. This is just a link that you would use if you wanted to use the app on your phone for like a personal app, or for like an app inside your own company, just to have access to that. You can click publish to App Store here and actually submit it directly from Rork. But I think the best way, like obviously if you do this, if you publish it from Rork directly, what you're not going to be able to do is you're not going to be able to put payments in here. And if you're building a consumer app and you need payments, you're going to have to get it out of Rork and then put it into Cursor and integrate something like Superwall or Revenue Cap before you do that. So you can publish it to the app stores. This is actually pretty much just done with Expo anyway, so it's like a very similar process that we'll be doing if you do it with Expo outside of Rork anyway. So let's just wait for this to build and see what Rork comes back with here. So Rork has produced our app. We can see here it says perfect, the calendar app is now fully optimized and working beautifully. There's not like anything happening in the preview on the right. Okay, now it's loading. There we go. So there, it's basically summarized all of the stuff that it's built here from that first prompt. And let's see what we've got here once this is finished loading. So there, it's 100% loaded. Okay, so we have this like minimal designed calendar interface. You can click on a day and you can add event. There's no way of me getting back from the day at the moment, so that is an issue. Let's just reload this. I'm going to basically, what I want to do here is I want to, and I can add an event by clicking this and then click cancel. So if I add an event, I can then choose the labels here. These labels aren't particularly great from a design point of view, but that's fine. That's just a minimal change. We've got event title, description. It would be great if we can add custom labels as well. So this is already like sparking new ideas for me, like as I'm building this. And I think that's really great advice for like if you're stuck not knowing what to build with any of these tools, just get started with something, see where you go, and that will spark new ideas. Maybe you want to make changes to what you've built. Maybe you want to build something new. But every time you do something, you're going to get new information and new ideas to actually keep building. This is the date that it's added in here, and you can also add the time. It'd be great for me to do like a time range and then also add if it repeats or if it's an all-day event, like similar to your standard kind of calendar on your phone. Let's add an event in here and just check if the AI is working basically. So that's the core functionality of the app that I want to test here. So let's call this Dad's birthday, and then let's save that. And that's going to be, if I go back here, you can see that dot on that day. So we've now got an event in our calendar. If I click on Wednesday, this day, it's not actually showing the event. So I'm going to fix that. Let's fix these little things first here that aren't working. So let's say when I add an event to the calendar, it isn't showing in the full day view. Can you figure out why and fix that? So this is going to go away and fix that change, and then I'll add a back button to the day full view quickly as well, because that's annoying to keep refreshing to test that. And also that would just break if you used it on your phone. You wouldn't be able to actually get back to the calendar view, so that's a pretty big issue. Rork is just going through and making these changes for us now. So Rork has done that change, and now if I click on the day, you can see the event is in there. It says personal all day, so it's kind of given it those labels already, and I can delete that event there as well. If I just go back here, I'm just going to then prompt it to add a back button, to the full day view, so I can get back to the calendar view. So let's get it to add that back button, and then we're going to test the AI chat functionality here to make sure that works before we sync this code to GitHub, take it out, put it into Cursor, and then we're going to add the payment functionality. And then once that's done, we're going to create our projects in Expo and then get that onto the App Store. But as AI is prone to do, it says that it's completed the task, but it hasn't actually done it, or I can't see it on the app. There is no back button, so I'm just going to prompt this to actually go in and fix that for me. So I'm just going to say the back button still isn't visible. Can you check why this is and fix it? And that's a tactic that I like to take with a lot of these AI tools. It's not just to prompt it to fix the issue, but to say, can you investigate why this is happening and then fix it? I tend to find that gives a little bit better results when it comes to fixing bugs in these AI tools. So let's see if we can get this to work and actually add the back button to the day on the calendar. So there it says it's fixed the changes. Apparently the day screen header was hidden at the root. So it's changed that so that that's actually going to show now. It's just loading, and then we're going to see the preview of this on the right hand side. So let's wait for it to finish up. One other thing that's worth mentioning here is that in the chat, similar to other app builders, you can also go back and restore from any previous checkpoint. And I feel like that's quite an underrated and underused way of actually fixing bugs and making changes in apps using these AI app builders. It's just, if you're getting stuck in a loop, if you're getting stuck in a loop of these bugs happening in the code or with the AI tool, just go back to a previous checkpoint and start again. That can often be like a much better way to approach it. And try a different AI model here as well to try and fix the bug that you're experiencing. If you can't get it to fix it in the first few times, that can be a really good way of actually fixing those bugs. Okay, so now we've got that change back. If I go into a specific day here, you can see that the back button is at the top. You also have a plus, so you can add an event to that day as well. The same as you have on the calendar view here. What I'm going to do is, you can see that I've got Dad's birthday in here on August the 13th, which is the day that I'm filming this. What I want to do is I want to just check the AI functionality is working here. So I'm just going to ask it, when is Dad's birthday? Because the idea here is that this AI agent would know your calendar, so it would have all of your calendar information as the context. So let's see if it knows, or even if it's connected to an AI tool, basically. Let's send this off to the chat. Okay, amazing. It's done that. I built this before and it had a couple errors with this, so it's great that it's done this in one go. I also want to ask it another question here just to check if it's got all of the information about this. So Dad's birthday is set as an all-day event. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it, how long is Dad's birthday? And then see if it can answer this question. It's a one-day event on August the 13th, 2025. Okay, perfect. So this AI functionality is already working. We've got our simple calendar view here. So obviously this is not the final version that I would want to ultimately push to the App Store. But this is just kind of to demo what you can do with this tool and with this tech stack to actually get it onto the App Store. I might want to do a few other things here just to get it up to scratch. We want to actually refine the experience of this app so that it feels really good to use and make sure the design is all good. So I'd probably go through this and add a final layer of polish to everything here, make sure all the functionality works, any edge cases are covered, maybe add in a few other features here as well. And you're going to have to do things like creating the app icon and creating the App Store screenshots as well to actually put on the App Store. But if we're doing a mobile app, we can just link people from social media, from our content, to an app download on the App Store, and they can go directly there and then just download the app. And so now that we've got this built and the functionality working, let's go into, it might be good actually here as well to have saved chats, so that I can, if I've asked when Dad's birthday is once and then I forget about it and do it again, I might want to go back and just ask that same question. So maybe saved chats could actually be a really good feature here as well. You'll maybe like figure out some of these ideas as you're building, like I said. Let's do, before we actually connect this to GitHub, I want to enable the backend here so that this is going to be storing this information for the user in a database, because I think if we're adding stuff to a calendar, we want to be able to have that stored in a database that's then able to be referenced by the AI agent when we're chatting with it. And also every time we go back into the app, we don't want that data to be lost. We need that to be persistent and saved somewhere. So let's enable that, which is working in the left hand side. And whilst that is doing that, we're going to connect the GitHub account here as well. So I'm going to connect it to my GitHub account. There we go. Let's connect that. So this is going to go back to Rork, and we're going to give that repository a name here, which is great because sometimes it will just automatically, on other platforms, it will just automatically name the repository for you based on the project that you've got in that tool. So that's actually really nice. Now we can see we've got this repository connected on GitHub, which is going to be syncing. We're enabling the backend here. And so if I go over to GitHub, I can see that I've got AI Cal here, and this is all of my code for this project. It's just said created by Rork, and I can download this code so that I can open it in Cursor and then add some more functionality. So let's download that and get this open in Cursor. So if you haven't used Cursor before, you can go to cursor.com to download it, and then all you have to do when you open Cursor, it might seem a bit intimidating because it's like an AI code editor, but all you really have to do here is just click Open Project and then go to where your project is saved, click on the folder that you just downloaded from GitHub, open that up, and that will have all of your code exactly the same as we had in the repository there. This is all the stuff that you had in Rork, basically, all the same code. So you can either do this using the Cursor agent or using something like Claude Code. I'm just going to use the Cursor agent here because we're doing this all with ChatGPT5. So I've set this to GPT5 in Cursor. And you get a bunch of GPT-5 free usage in Cursor if you're using it for the next couple of weeks, I think, after the launch of GPT-5. And I just want to basically, let me show you Superwall quickly. This is the payment tool that we're going to be integrating. And basically this just allows you to create these paywall screens in your apps. And we're doing it in React Native, so it should be very easy to implement this. That's the language that Rork uses to build your apps. This is already used by a ton of apps, by loads of people. And you can see down here, there's a bunch of different templates as well, basically for you to create paywalls. And this allows you to actually test these paywalls really, really easily without pushing a new version of your app to the App Store, which can be a bit of a pain, especially on the iOS App Store, because it takes a while to actually like review anything that you're publishing there, and that can just kind of slow the whole thing down, especially if you want to test different payment methods, different payment plans, that sort of thing. So all you have to do here is you just have to sign up and then go to your dashboard. Once you've signed up, you will have to create a new project. After you've created your account, you just select React Native, which is the one that which is the language that we've built in Rork. Enter the project name, enter your app's name, and then you've got these two fields here, iOS bundle ID and Android bundle ID. The way that you do this is if you have a website, so you might need to buy a domain to actually set this up. So say I've got aical.com, I would do com.aical, com.aical, and then the name of my app, which is aical. That's a bit confusing, but it's basically your website URL reversed and then the name of your app afterwards, so fairly straightforward. That can like stump some people. I've already created one here called aical, and then the first page that you'll get in Superwall is this quick start page. What you can actually do as well is go to the documentation and put that into Cursor to help it kind of install this in your project. So we've got install the SDK, so we'll need to do that in Cursor, and then configure the SDK, present a paywall, configure your products. So as part of this process, you do have to have, if you're publishing to the iOS App Store, you do have to have an Apple developer account to do this, which You just have to sign up for it. It can take a little bit of time to actually get the Apple developer account, but once you've got that, you would just go to App Store Connect, and then basically you set up your subscriptions in the App Store Connect. Superwall will connect to them so that you're basically like linking your subscriptions from App Store Connect to Superwall so that you can charge people when they get into your app through Superwall. Or you can do this using Revenue Cat as well. That's another option here. So Revenue Cat is another way of setting up subscriptions for apps, and basically just follow the instructions here to do that. And then we can go into the paywall editor here in Superwall and start creating our paywall for our app basically, or use a template. That's just an example paywall. If you want to start a paywall from a template, you just go to this template section here and then create the paywall for your app. So you can kind of choose the one that suits your app. So I'm going to actually look for the Superwall documentation, and then I'm going to give that documentation to Superwall docs here at the top. So we want to use the Expo SDK because we're publishing our app using Expo rather than directly in the App Store. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just copy and paste this. Let's click on the quick start link here. This is going to give Cursor a little bit of context as to how to actually install this in our app. And so this is a really common way of actually building stuff into your projects, is just to basically copy and paste any documentation to your AI agent and then get it to build that functionality for you. So let's say this. So let's say I want to add Superwall to this React Native app project using the Expo SDK. I always like to clarify things to the AI as much as possible. So we've said it's React Native, and we've said we're using the Expo SDK for Superwall. And then can you plan this for me and then set it up in this project? We've got this set to GPT5. So this should plan out basically the implementation plan and then go through and install it in this project for us. We'll need to test this obviously, so we should be able to sync this back to GitHub and then test it back in Rork to see if this paywall works. And you can see here it's installing the Superwall SDK, it's planning the Superwall setup, setting up the configuration, planning the integration. So it's just going through this thinking process of figuring out exactly what it needs to do in this project before it does it. And you're going to get some commands in here that you basically have to kind of like approve as you go. So this is said it wants to search the Superwall Expo SDK to find this specific information. So we're just going to put continue on that. It's going to now install dependencies, and basically dependencies just mean things that need to be installed for the actual functionality of what we're doing to work. So this is going to basically just mean that Superwall will work. This is just running something in the terminal to actually install that into our project. And so don't be too put off if you're not familiar with this, with all of this stuff happening. This is just Cursor figuring out exactly what it needs to do in this project. And we're going to test this. We'll be able to test this all afterwards anyway to make sure this works, and then we can kind of work back and forth between Cursor, GitHub and Rork to get this app to a point where we're ready to publish it into the App Store. So whilst Cursor is installing Superwall, I'm just going to go over to Expo, which is basically where we're going to publish our apps to the Android and iOS app stores. And all you do is create an account on Expo and then create a project once you get into Expo. So this is going to be AI Cal. Let's create that project in Expo. And for this project using Expo, we've got these installs on for an existing code base tab, and you basically would be able to run those commands in the terminal inside Cursor to set this up. And I can click view projects to go here. I've got no project activity for this project, so we need to actually get our app build into Expo. So what we want to do is we want to basically build from GitHub, and to do that we have to link GitHub to our Expo account, the same, very similar to how we did it with Rork. That will allow us to access the repository where our code is installed in GitHub basically, and then we can connect this one, the AI Cal repository, to this project. So now this repository is connected to this project, and you can see here if you go back to the overview, you've got this repository now connected to this AI Cal project in Expo, and I can build from GitHub. This will basically allow me to create a build of this app in Expo, so we can kind of keep different versions saved in Expo, and you'll be able to see them under your builds tab here, and then when you want to actually submit to the App Store, you'll be able to submit your app via this submissions tab, and you basically would choose like what build you want to submit. But we do have to get everything working here, and I don't want to oversimplify all of this stuff because there is a lot to learn in this process and it does take time. Even with Cursor here having this Superwall SDK kind of like set up inside of this project, there's still going to be errors and we still need to test it. We still need to sync this code back to GitHub and then sync that with our app in Rork so that we can preview this. We then need to sync that back to GitHub to get the code into Expo, so this will have the latest version of our code in here, create a build and then submit it to the App Store once we know that everything is working. But this at the moment is still probably the easiest way to actually go from app idea to build it in Rork and then to get a paywall set up in your app using Cursor and Superwall, and then to actually be able to publish it to the App Store via Expo. Obviously, if you just want a personal app and you just want to have it on your device, you can just do that just using Rork, but in order to actually get an app where you get paying customers and you can publish it to the App Store, you need to go through these extra steps here as well. And there is a lot to learn and figure out along the way, but don't be discouraged because it's all relatively easy to figure out with AI. Once you get the hang of it, just keep asking questions, keep fixing any issues, ask different tools for help, ask different models for help. But that's really an overview of the full process of building the $5,000 a month app using AI, using Rork and GPT5 primarily, as well as Cursor and Superwall. Hopefully that's helped, and let me get into my final thoughts. So hopefully that gave you a sense of how you can build a mobile app using Rork and a few other tools. There is a little bit of a technical learning curve to actually integrating the paywall through Superwall or Revenue Cat and actually building a mobile app that you can deploy onto the App Store, onto the Google Play Store. And you do need to use Cursor to do some of that integration, and you will need to have your code on GitHub. But it is totally possible. If you can just get through those barriers to actually learning how to do this, then you'll be able to go from idea to an actual app that you could publish on the App Store in even under a day. And if you tie that into actually being able to get attention and building an audience on social, even if you don't have an audience, just using short form video platforms to actually get a ton of attention onto your app pretty quickly, you can really clearly see how you could build something that could make a significant amount of money and even launch a business just from a simple app idea that solves a painful problem and that people will pay to use again and again. Hopefully that helps, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And as usual, if you are building an app and you do want to learn how to get paying customers and actually launch it, you can go over to my community over at school.com/AI apps to learn more and join today, and I'll see you in the next video.
Build great products. Build great products.